final meeting of the year, if I may. So President Lehman, your meeting, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. We do have a shortened agenda today. I will take this minute. I think it's appropriate. Let's stand and at least say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all and welcome on this cold wintry morning. We will note that the council is in attendance with the exception of Ms. Spoljaric, so we do have a quorum. And the first item on our agenda will be the consideration of our minutes from the meeting of December 12th. Is there a motion to that regard, please?
I had made a couple of suggestions for changes. I was just trying to look here, but it hadn't got there yet. Were those changes made?
I don't know, I sent them to Kim, so I'm not real sure. I'll have to find out. Do you remember what they were on?
I see the first one was changed.
You moved and seconded one thing.
Yeah. I think everything has been, I think both things were fixed. So I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented from 12/12/16.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Claims docket.
Move to approve claims.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Thanks. Okay. The first item under old business is our salary ordinance 16-39. As noted, just so we know, I believe that the salary ordinance was proposed with a 2% increase across the board, which is in line with what we did for the rest of staff, I believe. So at this time, it was introduced on the 12th. It is time for adoption. Is there a motion? And then we can have some discussion as necessary.
I move to approve ordinance 16-39, 2017 elected officials salary.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. All right, is there any discussion? Hearing, seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right, at this time, I've asked Jeremy to join us. We have a situation or some traffic concerns in Village Farms along Oak Ridge Road and Greyhound Pass, that intersection that we've been dealing with for months, if not years. And we're at a time where we need to make a decision, or at least have some discussion so we can make a decision pretty quickly. So I've asked Jeremy to stop by and talk to us today about some of his findings on what could be done, and then also discuss with us some public comments that have come from that area. So Jeremy, welcome and thank you.
Thank you all. As President Lehman said, my name is Jeremy Lawler. I'm the Director for the Public Works Department. To give you a little backstory on the project back in 2014 in anticipation of the US 31 project. We submitted and received funding for a roundabout or a congestion mitigation project at the intersection of Oak Ridge Road and Greyhound Pass. So to orient you, this is Greyhound Pass that runs through the middle of Village Farms from US 31 to Spring Mill, and I think you're all familiar with Oak Ridge Road. So we did receive federal funding for this. As a part of any federal project, we do some public outreach. As a result of those meetings, we have met some problems here with the neighborhood, the Village Farms neighborhood. The funding that we received is CMAQ, congestion mitigation and air quality. The intention of that is to expedite traffic, not stop traffic, essentially. Based on all the analyses that we've done, we and our consultant, we determined that a roundabout would be the best situation in this location. We've spent a little money and a lot of time over the last couple years trying to orient this in a manner that is least disruptive to the neighbors. So we're at about a 30% design, and this is a rendering that we produced based on our stage 1 design. A lot of the major concerns coming from the neighborhood is they believe it's going to expedite traffic through the community itself along Greyhound Pass, and as well it's going to hinder some pedestrian safety. So through that process, we have designed this with an emphasis on pedestrian safety, and as well as pinching down both of these sides here. So this is Greyhound Pass, this is Oak Ridge Road. So the idea is that you narrow this down to slow traffic down. You create deflection and then some refuge areas here. As you can see, this has got a pedestrian refuge at all the crossings, as well as about 10 feet of non-vehicular travel lane to cross. So as opposed to crossing an entire intersection, which is what pedestrians do now, they will be crossing these little chunks of road, as well as some additional pedestrian flashers, things like that, all incorporated in the project. The other major complaint or concern from the neighborhood is what it's going to do to the houses adjacent to it. As you can see here, this is an aerial view of the overlay. We were able to shift to the north and west, so that way we're not minimizing the impact to these residents here, which are the closest to the corner. There will be some right-of-way take associated with it, but it's the least amount that we can do. So we are at a point now, with it not being a favorable recommendation from the neighborhood, that we have to make a decision to either move forward with the project or return the funds to the MPO for reallocation. So we got about just under $2 million worth of federal money associated with this project that will revert back to the MPO. I don't think it's right that I make that decision. I think you all should make a decision or recommendation for the overall betterment of the community, as compared to just the adjacent neighbors. So happy to answer any questions that you might have. Another thing that we did was we put a landmark here. For one of the big concerns was that we were dividing the neighborhood by putting a roundabout there. We proposed putting a Village Farms logo sign in the middle of the roundabout to make it more of an amenity to the community than a division. So I think that we've addressed as well as we can everything that they've brought forth, and still met with a little bit of apprehension. So I'm just asking for a little bit of guidance from you all of whether or not you want me to proceed with this, or whether or not I need to contact the MPO and give the money back.
Thank you.
Mr. President, let me add a little bit, if I may. Jeremy very well pointed out that this is a federally funded project through the Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO. And as we go through the city and upgrade intersections, we seek the federal funds because usually it's an 80-20 shared program, or 20% is shared locally. We submit nearly annually many projects to the MPO for such funding. And I would say that probably, Jeremy, maybe 25% are ever approved. And in order to be approved, you have to show the need. So the state and the federal government well recognizes by approving the funds for this project, there is definitely a traffic need here. So this isn't something that the Public Works just picked out themselves. The funds that we compete for throughout this MPO region are highly competitive. Once we turn money back in, the likelihood of us receiving funds in the future are pretty slim. So as Jeremy well stated, we didn't feel like it was to be our decision alone. Obviously, it does affect the neighborhood. It does affect the immediate residents, as any construction project does, but the question we'd like for you to answer is, it also affects the entire community. So we would solicit your input and thoughts on how we should proceed with this.
The only other thing that I would add, and thank you, Mr. Zager, for reminding me, is this is contemplated on our thoroughfare master plan. It was set forth several years ago. So that's also worth noting. Those things have to be accounted for when submitting these applications for funding. So it was, since we established it, always intended to be an improvement in the form of a roundabout.
Assuming that we do nothing, and the funds will simply revert back, correct?
Correct.
At that point, then we're basically on our own.
Yes, I would say it's very unlikely that if we were to resubmit this, that we would get funding again. And keep in mind that that funding would be 5 years from the time it's awarded. So I would say if we do nothing now, in order to get federal funds, we're looking at least probably 9 to 10 years down the road before we could have additional assistance on this.
Okay, thanks. If we call this solution A or option A, what's B?
Based on all the analysis that we've done, option B is nothing because of the funding source. We looked at adding additional turn lanes to both directions. That's only going to hinder pedestrian safety in this situation because you're crossing more lanes of traffic. So there is, to give you a little clearer view, along Greyhound Pass, there is a bike share lane essentially all the way through here, most commonly used as pedestrian activity to get you to the Monon Trail, which it intersects down here, right here. So crossing this intersection on foot at a four-way stop is unsafe as it is. Adding turn lanes is only going to further emphasize that. So strictly from a pedestrian safety perspective, the roundabout is the safest.
You said there were two objections to this. One was pedestrian safety. The other was increased traffic. Where did the residents identify the increased traffic coming from?
This has become somewhat of a vehicular cut-through to US 31, largely because to access Keystone Avenue, you have to get on at 31 at 151st Street or further north. That is being remedied now with an addition of a ramp from Lowe's Way to Keystone. So we think that it's gonna decrease even further once that is in play, which is going to construction in 17, sorry, which will further limit the traffic east-west on Greyhound Pass, in our opinion, based on the information that we have. But right now, there is a significant amount of traffic that moves through the neighborhood and accesses US 31 through Village Farms.
Jeremy, what effect does the Union Street South Westfield Boulevard extension, what will the impact of that be when it opens?
I don't know that it'll impact this significantly. This is more your western side of the community getting to 31, where I think this would be your eastern side, or your people moving north to downtown. I don't know for sure if that's gonna have a great impact on it or not, but everything we're doing here is trying to emphasize north-south traffic and minimize east-west traffic through the neighborhood.
And in the cost estimates, the monument in the center of the circle, identifying that as Village Farms, is included in the project costs?
It would be locally funded separately. There's no landscaping to the interior part of any federally funded
But
roundabout
that is
unless.
internal to the project? That is
Yes,
inclusive.
yes, yeah. We would absolutely include that when the time was right.
Among the concerns, traffic-wise, you alluded to the emphasis on Oak Ridge Road. There's the belief, and I don't know where it's coming from, that somehow or other this is going to increase the traffic on Oak Ridge Road. I don't know where those additional people are coming from, but to say that there was a little bit of concern from the neighborhood is, you know, master of understatement. There is really no middle ground. There is a core group that is passionate about this, that behaved
Sure.
disappointingly at the last meeting at Village Farms, with anybody that was inclined to vote yes on this probably feeling pretty intimidated by the behavior of the large part of the room. I suspect among the 22 yeses, a lot of those folks probably just voted and left,
Yeah.
did not stay. I was one of the fools that was there. But it's certainly incited a lot of passions, and I actually was wrong, and one of the things I indicated that night was that this actually, and it's not truly a vote, I guess, but I said, you know, individual projects such as this rarely come before council. I said, I'm 1/7 of it, and I will make sure that everybody understands the depth and significance of the passions of everybody in the neighborhood, the folks that are immediately impacted. To the east in particular, I had a fairly lengthy discussion with a gentleman on the southeast corner who assured me that his property value would go to zero, and that he was kind of represented, he believed, as being in favor of it if there were some improvements made, which we have done, but his posture that night was that he was only in favor of it if we gave him 100% buyout. Tried to explain to him that we are not allowed to do things like that, that we will do everything we can to minimize the impact on his property as well as anybody else that's nearby, but he eventually got tired of talking to me and walked away.
I assume you're talking about this.
Yes, that gentleman.
Yeah. He is one of the people we were working to accommodate. We've obviously talked to all of these people throughout the process. In shifting the roundabout, there will actually be no right-of-way take from his parcel. And as you stated, the federal guidelines are very strict on what we can and can't do when it comes to taking a right-of-way. We could not, as a part of this project, just go purchase his house as a good favor. That would be a violation of the federal process.
Right, and I
so.
tried to explain that, but
Mhm.
he wasn't having it. The newer residents on the southwest corner that evening had some concerns about the accuracy of the information that was being depicted. Have we resolved all of that with her?
I would have to defer to staff. Phil Sundling is our very capable city engineer. He's been working very closely on this. We're trying to thread the needle there, but I'm certain that we're doing everything we can to be accommodating. Even to the point where we're talking about additional access for this to add safety getting in and out of the driveway, potentially offering some access off of here so they can come in and into the house this way or out. It's part of our general process to alleviate as much impact as we can. And we will do that over the next year and a half, should you guys ask or allow us to push forward. Those are the details we haven't gotten to yet, so.
Jeremy, could you go back to the rendering? Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, that's about as accurate as we can get at this point with being a stage 1, 30% design, which is essentially the layout. It does take into account drainage and alignments and all of those things. As you move forward, it gets, the changes would be very minimal from this point forward from a layout perspective. Now, where you get into the drainage and all those things, that's the details that we still got to work out, but.
I assume that short of taking property, which you said was not a consideration, in other words, we're not really imposing on property, right?
We are, but not the ones on the east. It would be the northwest and southwest
Okay.
corners.
But for example, if I lived on that northeast corner, right?
Mm-hmm.
At some point in time, the construction on the northeast,
Right here?
right, yeah,
Yeah.
for, just as an example. I mean, obviously with the construction, that's gonna do some damage,
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah.
Okay, so during the process, it could get ugly, but at the end, that has to be put back.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, whatever that is. I mean, if
Yeah,
a shrub's damaged or something like that, shrubs are put back or mounds or whatever that is, or contours are made,
Mm-hmm.
so that the end result, once the dust settles, is typically, I mean, that's why I went back to that rendering.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have a little bit of latitude when you start getting into the specific plants, plant types,
Mm-hmm.
that type of thing.
Sure.
Do a
sure.
little bit of
Yep.
of buffering or shielding or something like that.
Yeah, we do have some freedom that way, and just like we've done in our other roundabout projects, we will talk to the neighbors, ask them what they want, do our best to accommodate it. If we take down trees, we put trees back, same with shrubs. Also, from a construction standpoint, we would construct this in the same manner that we did Spring Mill and 156th and Oak Ridge and 161, where we shut down for a 60-day closure to minimize the impact, and build it and then open it back up as quickly as we possibly can. So yes, there will be some impact during construction, but we do everything we can to minimize that.
And those folks on the northeast actually have a fairly good little buffer of their own right now, but in addition to having to impact the trees, if I'm not mistaken, there's a fire hydrant on that northeast corner as well that's gonna have to be relocated, so you
Yeah.
will have quite a bit of work to do up there, but if we're not taking property, there's ample opportunity for restoration similar to or better than what they have today.
Yeah, yes.
The gentleman on the southeast doesn't have that luck.
Yeah, there will be, and we're not there yet at this stage in design, but there will be an entire utility relocation plan and implementation. Without seeing it, I don't know if that's an extension of a hydrant or a moving of a water main. We discover all of those things in the process, but yes, we typically try to leave it far better than what we find it.
When you built the, Bob, when they built the 150, the Spring Mill roundabout,
Hmm?
the neighbor to the southeast was affected, and they did have to take out some trees and plantings, and he was concerned about that. I talked to him before the project and after the project, and he's very pleased with, yeah, right there.
This one here?
He was very pleased with the results, and it looks tremendously, I mean, it had zero effect, and if anything, I think it improved his landscaping around the perimeter.
Yeah, I
So
would agree, and we,
That's a concern, I would say those people could go over and take a look at how that turned out. I think he did a very nice job with that.
thank you. And additionally, in the same type of situation with this neighborhood, we added a significant amount of trees here to create a better buffer from the community into the roundabout. Those are the things that we can do to help.
Conceptually, it'd be helpful if they looked at it probably, but in reality, it's such a much larger roundabout an area that would probably be hard to extrapolate how the sensitivities that we showed on that corner would apply at this other corner. I'm not suggesting I don't believe that we're gonna do a really high caliber job of doing what we can to minimize
Yeah.
everybody's impacts, but it is a project that's important and it's getting shoehorned into a relatively small area, so there will be impacts. There's no two ways about it.
Sure.
Assuming this is approved,
Mhm.
how does the timeline for this build relate to the timeline for the Keystone access ramp that's being put in?
This is a 2018 construction project, so it would be eligible to start construction in July of 18. I don't know for sure or not whether or not the ramp will be open. It will either be open or under construction and really close to being open. So to say that they're going to happen at the same time, I can't guarantee that, but it's going to be really close time frame.
I'm just looking, people are going to have to avoid this intersection. If the reason for increased traffic is because of Keystone, once people find a new route to take and have to take it for at least 60 days, in all likelihood, they'll maintain that route if that's the reason that access ramp is open.
I would agree with that, yeah.
So,
Just a comment from the public. I live to the west of this, and my wife, myself, our family, we deal with access to Keystone South every week. Not every day, but certainly, continually. I've never gone to that intersection to get to Keystone, never. So I find that fascinating, and I'm probably as good as anybody at trying to find the path of least resistance.
Sure.
That's not it.
I would agree with you.
I do believe Dr. Keen made, that has to be probably one of the most dangerous intersections for pedestrian or biking that I know of. Now, I'm sure there's worse, but not that I know about. That's horrible. To a point, we're almost encouraging it because we do have the trail down there and we do have the pathways on either side. So you're having a, casual stroll, and then you get to there, and it's just pure dangerous. So I don't see where how could we get funding if this is worse than the way it is now? This has to be an improvement.
Yes.
Significant
It is a
improvement.
significant improvement. I would agree with that completely.
And for traffic, I don't know what we could do. How can we possibly limit any increased traffic anywhere? I don't know how we do that.
Well, the one thing we can't do is control the direction that people choose to go. We can try to project and we can try to create paths that are more convenient. I think moving people north and south on Oak Ridge Road is doing just that. Another layer of this is one of our worst intersections now, congestion-wise, is 156th and Oak Ridge, just north 1 mile or 1 block. That project has been submitted for federal funding as well. I'm not certain whether or not it'll be warded or not, but of our list of our top 5 congestion problems, that's on there, so it will be addressed at some point. When that happens, that's going to further emphasize the danger of this 4-way stop, in my opinion, especially once you have the Keystone open. You have roundabouts free-flowing essentially a couple miles north. The traffic's going to continue to pile up north and south on Oak Ridge Road here.
That was among the concerns, was people on Greyhound Pass are gonna get stuck for inordinately long, unacceptable periods of time because of increased traffic flow on Oak Ridge that would prohibit the Greyhound people from being able to get on as easily if there was a lot of southbound traffic at whatever time of day they're trying to get onto the roundabout or through it, and similarly on the other side. I drive through there, it's my neighborhood. I agree, it's an intersection that needs a lot of help. As I said earlier, it seems like there's no middle ground on this. There's passions either in agreement with it or vehemently against it, but very little middle ground. And I think roundabouts in general are very little middle ground. You either recognize their benefit and how safe they actually are, the things they bring of value, or you just think it's all smoke and mirrors, and you just will never accept it, despite the fact that we have records full of improvements of fewer accidents, less severe accidents, fewer injuries, less severe injuries, where they continue to occur at places where we've built roundabouts as opposed to 4-way stops. So I don't know how you overcome the belief that that's just all inaccurate, because they're just not accepting it. The 10-foot additional space that's inside the yellow lines where the pedestrians get to the safe haven, that's always intended to be exactly that. The emphasis that we tried to have that night at the Plum Hudson Village Farms was, this is not your roundabout that most everybody in the room was familiar with, where it's built for strictly traffic. This will have a very heavy pedestrian safety emphasis to it, and this is something that probably is part of the confusion, I think, in that we have a lot of roundabouts that are on single-lane roads, but they're built to be able to go ahead and have 2 lanes whenever it is the road projects, either any side of the spoke might add lanes there. This is not something that would ever function that way, that it's going to be a roundabout with single-lane traffic expectations on all 4 spokes.
That is our expectation at this point.
And I don't know how we hammer that point home a little more
So,
convincingly, but I think that's part of the concern too, is that it's not all being above board as far as you do this in other ones, why are we to believe that you're not going to do it here?
We try to design with the future in mind, no matter what. But yeah, our intention, in projection-wise, there's not going to be a need for a more than single lane north-south on Oak Ridge for many, many years. We looked like 20 years out, I believe, and there was still no need for it. Everything that's going to develop has developed, so that traffic's not going to increase greatly from what it is today.
I understand that and accept it, but
Sure.
there are a lot of people in the room that didn't.
to, Jeremy, clarify a bit where we are in the process. So we've been working on this for a number of years, right?
Yeah, since 2014.
And without any interruptions, this would have just flown through the process. There would have been a flow, right?
Yeah, and we actually delayed it a fiscal year to try to work through and accommodate some of the requests of the neighborhood. So this was actually supposed to go to construction in 17. The MPO was gracious and allowed us to push it back a year to try to work through all the problems, which is where we're at now. If you all elect to not move forward with it, then in January, I need to contact the MPO and return those funds, because we won't be able to meet the deadlines in order to construction in the fiscal year that it's slated for.
From
Okay.
a wider perspective, can I jump in and ask a question? Because I'm actually ending up on limited time. I have a 10:15 appointment to get my RMAX rate again. Should this body go the route of let's not do this, does that long-term impact our credibility with MPO? Does it potentially impact any other future submittals that we might have trying to make a case for improvements that we don't accept this, ultimately, do they wonder, is Westfield going to actually just tie up these funds when somebody else could be using them? Maybe we have another equally as worthy project we should lean that way instead?
I can't speak for the MPO. I will tell you that there's a couple $100 million worth of projects submitted every year to try to achieve $44 million worth of dollar funds. They put a lot of work and time into a project like this, just like we have. And for it to go away, that's not going to reflect very well on us.
Right.
I don't know that they would hold that against us, but at the same time, they're, in the back of their minds, I'm sure they're going to say, well, are they just going to fail and give it back again? So.
But our mission here today, or in this time frame, very quickly, we either have to, as a council, say, okay, we're going to put an end to this, okay? We're going to make a decision to pull this, or it will move forward. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. I just need direction one way or another.
But the
So,
direction is now
yep.
ahead.
We are moving forward until someone tells me to stop, because we have to in order to meet the timeline.
Each counselor understand that we're here today. If he needs direction to stop it, we need to stop it. If not, he's going to move ahead.
I would support moving forward because I don't want to lose the funding. The problem of this intersection is not going to go away. We're just going to have $2 million less dollars to deal with. And I don't see any future solution being any different. Roundabouts have shown that they work. They are clearly safer for pedestrian crossing. There's no doubt in my mind. Because you're only crossing one lane of traffic at a time. And when I'm riding my bike or walking, I appreciate, it's nice to only have to look one way. Somebody's not gonna make an unexpected left turn on you or something. So I don't see any reason not to move forward with this.
I need to jump in, and I assured everybody at the meeting I would convey their concerns, which I hope I've done here tonight on a personal perspective, and I wrote personal very boldly on the top of my little ballot that said yes, because I also explained that I am on the end of the scale that likes roundabouts. I see their benefit and value. I like driving through them more so than I like driving a lot of other things. But as a council representative, I would make sure that it was clear that there was serious passion about having this, but that I was only 1/7 of council, and I couldn't assure that it would go any particular direction if it ever came to a discussion, and today I'm only 1/6 of it, and I have to get down to Ortho Indy for a 10:15 appointment. So having said that, I really do need to leave the room because I have a doctor waiting, but I'll wait to hear the results anxiously.
Thank you, sir.
And the rest of the business, you'll have to finish without me.
Thank you.
Well,
I would just add that we've got the funding now. The cost of the project down the road would be increased due to inflation and construction factors, and it would be a more expensive project. And certainly if we lost the funding, then it's on us, and as tight as dollars are, and it's in the public interest to move forward with this. I feel we've already invested time and money. You've done a great job with the design of this, and I think it might be even whether the neighborhood would recognize it or not, with the monument in the center, they wanted to have their neighborhood recognized, and that certainly is a fine recognition of both sides, and it might be considered I would certainly consider it a unifying factor. So in light of the fact that we've got the dollars to move forward, the fact that construction costs are going to escalate, land values, if we have land ac involved with this, will escalate, and I feel the time is, if we've planned for this, and something that needs to be done for the city.
I always defer to safety, and if this is a safer design for pedestrians, I would hate to think that we would wait until something occurred there and then have to do something, and then we're going to do it out of local money, so it's going to be all taxpayers paying for it, when here it would be federal dollars, that's still tax dollars, but I would prefer to do it now and have a safer intersection than to wait until after a tragedy may have occurred, and then you look back and say, well, you were fools for turning that down and not doing it. So it doesn't guarantee that something won't happen, but at least it increases the likelihood of safety to be paramount there.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve this project.
Appreciate that. I think that with clarification is that if we don't need to approve it. It's already approved. We have to stop it. If the appropriate action would be if we're against it, to stop it, because it's gonna move ahead, right?
I move that we don't stop it.
There you go.
How's that?
Thank you. Thank you. Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes, it is.
We have a motion on the floor to not stop this project. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
Comments?
pardon me?
Comments?
Yeah, yeah,
And this is exactly why we wanted to bring it here for open discussion. But as Bob reiterated, there's a lot of passion in that neighborhood, stirred up by probably a few. When the public meeting was held there, and Jeremy, were you there? And Mr. Sundling was there.
Yeah.
The treatment of Mr. Sundling was very disappointing. I bring this up because this is a passionate issue to that neighborhood, and we will need to be sure that we somehow address this back to the neighborhood. Well, I think that was some discussion maybe we should have amongst yourselves, because it will not be well received. And I understand the argument. I agree with your decision. It is in the best interest of the city. So whether that message goes back with Mr. Horkay, now that he left, it'd be easy to do, but somehow we need to come up with a plan here on how to readdress the neighborhood.
If you look at it, what would you have us do, And you could build tunnels underneath there, which would be 10 times as expensive, and this is something that we can afford and live with, and I think improves the situation. You just have to drive forward.
Other comments? I agree, Mayor, that we do have to do an outstanding job of communication. And there is a motion on the floor, and that we have to address this issue. I get it, and that's why we did this today. Whether it's appropriate that we do that right at this minute, I think more than anything is that there is no sentiment generally to stop this, so that we are basically telling you, wait a minute, don't turn this money back in right now.
Okay.
Which is the deadline that you're up against.
Correct.
So I think that's the first hurdle that we're looking at here. Obviously, if we have to do some conversation or go back to the neighborhood or something, I'm wondering, and this is a wonder, I wasn't there, but the emotions, you always see them. I'm wondering, it's like if we really pulled everybody, particularly maybe now and then later, it's like, wow, this isn't as bad, or this is a lot better than I thought, or whatever. It's like, this problem's not going away. So I agree, Mayor, we have to, tiptoe a bit, but at the same time, I don't see much of an option. What do we suggest? I mean, I'd be delighted on the behalf of the council to come up to some kind of a written statement.
Yeah.
We've talked about it forever. We just
Chuck?
don't. Yes.
If I could, I've made an appointment with some patrons to meet on a issue, and I have a
Yep.
10:30 appointment, so I'd like to vote on this, and then I have to exit myself.
Okay,
Point of order, do we really need a motion? The Public Works, it's in the Public Works' hand. Do we need official action by the council?
The way it's been presented is that the only action that was contemplated would be one to stop the project. It's already been authorized by a thoroughfare plan. It's already been in design. Cities have paid money for engineering and design costs. It is rolling down the road as any other project would. However, because of the public interest, it was brought here to see if there was a sentiment to change that momentum that's already in place. So the only vote that necessarily needs to be taken, of course you can vote in support of it, is one to stop what's already been started.
You have a motion on the floor.
Yeah.
yeah, we have a motion and a
Motion not
second.
to
Do you want to
stop.
withdraw the motion?
If it makes it easier, I'll withdraw my motion.
You want to withdraw your second?
Yes.
Motion is withdrawn. Okay, let's end this and we'll go on, and we'll need, if we need to, come back to it. Dr. Keen? Thank you. All right, let's move on and to under some new business and get our things taken care of here. Resolution 161, year-end transfers. We go through this every year. This is a council introduction today. It's resolution, as I said, 161. Let me pull it up here. Brian, do you have any comments on this?
As you said, this is an annual exercise. It's the authority for Cindy to move between the allocated funds as budgeted at the beginning of the year, so everything's in balance at the end of the year. Not knowing exactly where those funds will be, this is kind of an open-ended opportunity for her to make those adjustments so that they're fit and balanced at the end of the year.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, 16132. It's creating a fund and authorizing transfers between funds. Again, this deals with some boilerplate things.
Yes, sir. The clerks informed me, and this resolution is the result of the conversations I've had with the clerk's office. It is for depositing and managing sums from the Aurora TIF district. It creates Fund 438. It also creates Fund 437 for the deposit management of the East Side TIF funds. Those have to be created by resolution so she can place the monies in it. Is that it?
Thank you.
Do you have anything else you wanted to?
Is there a motion?
Move to approve resolution 16-132.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
When opposed, motion carries. That's all the items that we have for consideration today, unless there's some other comments. I don't know if there are any reports or anything. Have one, Mr. Hoover?
Plan Commission met last week. The depot at Spring Mill Station, that was a PUD, received a favorable recommendation. Will be coming to this body in the near future. Rainbow Child Development Daycare, which is on that same corner, 161st and Spring Mill. Development plan was approved. Chatham Hills, development plan and site plan for Section 3 was approved. Schofield Farms, planned unit development, 191st Street and 196th Street and Moontown Road, received a favorable recommendation. And a development plan for the get-go at Harmony was approved. That was it.
Thank you. Anything else from the council? Mayor, do you have anything for us? No. That does complete our business, and obviously the last meeting of this year. It went pretty quickly. Just wish everybody a happy new year, and we'll reassemble next year. That does it, and without an objection, we will stand adjourned.
Is that signaling the end of the meeting?